On the sunny afternoon of March 19th, 2025, a young woman pulls her car into a government parking lot in Tallahassee, Florida. Stepping out into the mild, muggy air, she takes in her surroundings as she makes her way down the sidewalk. The sprawling greens of neatly manicured lawns, the auburn flash of a robin darting through the trees. The familiar shape of the rosary clutched tight in her grip, she strides purposefully up the steps, trying and failing to ignore the rising anxiety she feels as she pulls open the door to the Florida Capitol building. A 20-year-old college student with no criminal record, she has spent little time, if any, in government buildings like these. She feels slightly out of place as she paces across polished stone floors and up an ornate, spiraling staircase to the second level. Turning into the second-floor hallway, something catches her eye. She almost can't believe what she's seeing. Two police officers loiter outside the door to the women's restroom, glaring coolly at her as they notice her approach. The one who seems to be in charge scans her up and down, as if analyzing her status as a potential threat. "Are you Marcy Rheintgen?" the officer asked. She nods. The officer informs her that if she enters this washroom, she'll be arrested and charged with trespassing, a second-degree misdemeanor under Florida law. She freezes, reeling at the gravity of her situation. For one, she was surprised. The Florida lawmakers really had read her letters declaring her intent to come here today. This simple trip into the women's washroom, a minimally impactful, non-violent act of protest that she had expected to be ignored, to be, in her own words, a nothing burger, had just turned into one of the scariest moments of her life. And it presented her with an awful choice. Does she face the charges, the jail time head on, something she's never done before? Or does she turn around and walk out of the building, an understandable act of self-preservation, but one that might make her feel as though she's compromised on her values? She wills her body into motion and walks past the two policemen, entering the restroom and washing her hands in the sink. The officers, two men, immediately enter the women's washroom to arrest her, removing her before she even gets a chance to pray to her rosary beads. Marcy complies without resistance as they remove her from the bathroom and begin escorting her through the building. They'll give her a notice to appear in court for the trespass and let her go free, they say, just as long as she promises to them right now not to use the women's bathroom again. Although her mind feels clouded with fear and uncertainty, coming this far has left her even more determined to confront the absurdity and injustice of her situation. "Maybe I will," she replies defiantly. Without delay, the officers handcuff her and put her in the back of a cruiser, headed to the men's ward of a nearby detention facility. After being refused bail by the state bondsman, Marcy is offered her one phone call, just like in the movies. Racking her brain to find the right person to spend this precious resource on, she dials the only appropriate number she can think of: her parents. Having had no idea of her plan, in their surprise and anger, they decide they won't be paying bail for her release. She hangs up the phone, defeated. She is now truly on her own. For the next 25 hours, while she waits for a judge to see her case, she lays crying on a metal bed, too afraid to shower, too distraught to sleep. The American Civil Liberties Union reports that Marcy is the first trans person in America to be charged with trespassing in a bathroom like this, meaning that her case, and the potential 60 days in a men's jail she could receive at her trial in May, represent a significant legal milestone for the United States. I'm here today to share an important first-hand perspective from one of the human beings at the center of this issue, and to tell you of the details of what will be a landmark case in American history. This is how Marcy Rheintgen was arrested for washing her hands. A 20-year-old computer science student from Chicago, Illinois, Marcy Rheintgen has never experienced a night in jail prior to her arrest in Florida. At home, her days are spent completing assignments and studying for exams, hanging out with friends, and taking part in the college experience like millions of other young people in the US. Devoutly religious, she speaks glowingly of the connection she's made with other church members, as well as the purpose and guidance provided to her by her faith. But while taking time off from her studies down in Florida, having a break from the bustle of campus gives her a time to reflect on the concerning trajectory of the government's rhetoric and actions against trans people, on her own experiences in having to endure harassment or judgment from strangers on the street. And as she reflects, she makes up her mind. She drafts a letter to the 160 Florida lawmakers responsible for the 2023 anti-trans bathroom laws, declaring that she intends to use the women's restroom in the Florida state capitol on March 19th.
I mean, I did hit a bit of a breaking point, yeah. You see enough of this stuff online, but you also experience stuff in person. I've been, like, verbally accosted before just walking down the sidewalk for being trans. I've had to deal with discrimination and stuff. I've never really been sounding the alarm, but it's reached a level I didn't think was possible. Like, legit, the other day, I think you probably saw this in my feed. Riley Gaines had an event, and I went to it, and I asked her if she wanted to imprison me, and she said yeah.
Here's the clip of Riley giving her take on Marcy's arrest.
Well, I think the solution is don't break the law. To be pretty realistic. Next question, I don't even know what you're saying. Don't break the law. It's not my decision to decide how long you have to stay in jail, but truthfully, I do want you to know that. Go ahead.
Is there any specific moment or thing that made you decide to sit down and write that letter?
The Hunter Schafer stuff with her passport. She's just like a personal hero of mine, and that really upset me.
Marcy's referring to this video, posted on February 21st by Hunter Schafer.
My new passport. Male. I'm not making this post to fearmonger or to create like drama or receive consolation. I don't need it. Trans people are beautiful. We are never going to stop existing. I'm never going to stop being trans. A letter and a passport can't change that, and this administration. And I don't really have an answer on what to do about this, but I feel it was important to share. This is real.
As far as I understand it, you wrote the letter to 160 Florida lawmakers, informing them.
Well, 158 because 2 seats were vacant, so I gave 1 letter to DeSantis and 1 letter to the Attorney General as well.
Did you print out 160 letters?
Mm-hmm. And I got 160 envelopes, and I wrote each address and name on them, in addition to the return address, and I added a stamp, and I signed each one individually with hearts or smileys or flowers or something. And then on the drive home, I stopped up Tallahassee, which is kind of right by where I drive through, and I wasn't expecting to get arrested. And everyone online's like, "Oh my gosh, how do you not expect to get arrested? You wrote all these letters, you did all of this." People don't understand when you're in the moment or something, how mundane life can get of nah, nothing ever happens. I just kept kind of saying that of nah, they're probably not gonna read their letters. It's gonna get lost in the mail.
The day arrives. You're driving back. You go to Tallahassee. What happens from there?
I park my car, walk to the Capitol building, go through the metal detectors and shit. I go up the stairs, and I actually had told a reporter what was going to happen, just in case I was arrested and I'd have no way to speak for myself. But I didn't really think that was going to happen. I texted her the day of nothing's going to happen. It's going to be a big nothing burger. And so I was walking up the hall to room 222C-ish area, and there was a bunch of police officers stationed outside the bathroom. And I was like,
really?
"Oh, hi."
A group of cops.
Yeah, and they were like, "Are you Marcy Rheintgen?"
And at that moment, it becomes real.
Yes. It was like, "Oh, shit." And I was just like, "Yes, I am." And they're like, "Well, we want you to know that if you use the women's bathroom, we're going to arrest you." And I said, okay. And then I went and I used the women's bathroom, and then they brought me down to the station downstairs.
You said you planned to wash your hands and pray to the rosary?
I was originally going to pray the rosary too, but I realized in the heat of the moment of like the police officers were already there. I just didn't have enough time.
What happens after they arrest you?
Well, so first, before they even handcuffed me, they brought me downstairs and they were going to issue me a notice to appear as long as I promised to not do anything. Promise not. They said I have to promise not to use the women's bathroom again.
The law enforcement officials said this to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were like, "We're gonna trespass you from the women's bathroom. As long as you don't go back there, we're gonna let you give you notice to appear." And I was like, you know what? Maybe I will use the women's bathroom again. And then they handcuffed me, and then they put me in the back of a car and drove me to a jail. I'm laughing about this, but I was crying the whole time.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine. So you get to jail, and then what?
They process me. They take away my clothes, my stuff, my phone. Get your one phone call, but I could only use it for a bail bond officer who said they wouldn't supply bail bonds to people outside of the states because states don't extradite typically for misdemeanors. And I called my parents to see if they could pay the bail bond officer to get me, and my parents were like, "Nah, we're not bailing you out." Which I get, tough love or whatever, but that was my phone call, and so I wasn't able to call anyone else, which is a shame because I would like to explain to people what was happening.
How did the officers enforcing the order at the courthouse and at jail treat you?
I didn't go to a courthouse. Do you mean at the Capitol?
I'm at the Capitol, yeah, sorry.
At the Capitol, I was like, this law is wrong, and they just seemed sort of apathetic. Well, we're enforcing it, and I was like, okay. Some of them seemed nice. There was this one guy who was like very giddy about it all, of like, he seemed really happy, excited to see me in jail, which felt really gross. But in the prison, people don't really know the guards don't usually know what you're there for. They just know bringing you here, bringing you there. And so they just treated me like I was like a rapist or a murderer. And I'm like, and it was actually kind of funny because people would like the guards and like prison people would like ask me, "What are you in for?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I washed my hands in the women's bathroom." And like some of them started like laughing hysterically, like, "What the fuck?"
So you spent the night in jail?
Yeah, I spent the night and like the rest of and like the next day basically all in jail. Like I got out at 4:30 the next day, like 4:30 p.m. and I arrived at 3 p.m.
So what happens after you get out of jail?
After you get out of jail, yeah, they just release you at the jail, and so you don't really go back to your car or whatever. And thank goodness I had like a charger to charge my phone. I had to, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to get an Uber. Like my phone was almost dead.
They just let you out. Sorry.
They just let you out at the jail. That's how it works. They don't like give you like a ride anywhere. You just like you have to walk. You have to walk and figure it out.
You get out of jail.
Mm-hmm.
You call an Uber to your car.
I had to walk to a Wendy's to plug in my phone, and I have to buy Wendy's because I feel obligated to. And I was in a men's like jail, so I didn't shower. Obviously, I was like, nah. And like they gave us like mystery meat. The food was disgusting, and people just treat you terribly. Generally, yeah.
It's been, I want to say 2 weeks since you were arrested.
Yeah.
And you've got about a month until your trial. What are you feeling in this moment?
I'm just sort of freaked out because I've never had this sort of like spotlight. I never faced down in a prison sentence before. I've never had many big decisions to make before.
Since being arrested, you've been met with so much online attention on both ends of the spectrum. How has that affected you?
It's a lot. I've cried a lot. Like I don't have thick skin. Like this stuff like actually hits me. Like the other day I didn't like go to class. I was just in my bed crying. It was weird because I was so sort of taken like aback and sort of I felt a little betrayed because I was like attacked by the trans community for some reason at first for being like a centrist, and I'm like, what the hell?
My response to that is you're 20. No offense. Like you're still developing your opinions, and I don't really care if you are like a total goober. I would still be standing up for you in this moment because what happened to you was wrong. How has getting arrested affected your relationships with people in your life currently and the church?
A lot of people are mad at me because I'll be honest, I'm a religious fanatic, kind of, and a lot of my friends are as well. And weird to go back to youth group culture and be like, "Oh yeah, I recently became a famous trans activist," and I feel weird about it. It feels weird. It's changed the dynamic. I mean, it's so stressful just to have all these people talking about you, to have all these news articles about me. Um, the one article I do like a lot is there was a Substack article about how I'm pretty, and I really appreciate
I'm
that.
sorry, about how you're what?
Pretty.
Substack.
That was the one good news that came out of it.
Would you say that the support people have shown you online has made a difference?
Yeah, just talk about stuff like this. Talk about to normal people and conversations about. I really think if we keep harping on this and people see it like, I went to jail in the men's jail because I washed my hands in the women's bathroom.
What does the next couple weeks before your trial look like for you?
Just a regular Tuesday. Gotta go to school. Gotta get my work done. It's better not to think about these things. Trying to return to normalcy, you know.
If you're convicted and held for the maximum 60 days, it's going to be in a men's prison.
And they're gonna shave my head and they're gonna not give me a bra. I'm gonna be wearing men's clothes. And they also have like different rules where they're kind of allowed to grope us and stuff. It's really weird. And most trans women in men's prisons are raped.
Trans women face massively increased rates of sexual and physical assault in men's correctional facilities. But a core part of their experience is being placed in the cell of an aggressive cis male inmate as a method of appeasement. Guard-facilitated rape, known as V-coding. The only option to escape this and other sexual and physical abuse from other inmates is to be placed in separate holding or solitary confinement, which is not only destructive to their mental health, but also still doesn't prevent them from being abused by guards responsible for their care. And this isn't even scratching the surface of the obstacles that trans prisoners face. Knowing this, I was horrified when I saw the executive order demanding that trans women were to be put in men's facilities exclusively moving forward. But what scares me just as much is the complete and utter apathy that most Americans, even those who consider themselves progressive, seem to feel towards people like Marcy, people like Mahmoud Khalil, like Kilmar Abrego Garcia. America has never been the perfect country. There has always been injustice. But the undeniable downward trajectory of rights for various marginalized groups should be terrifying to you. And yes, the best time to plant an oak tree was 40 years ago, but the second best time is right now. How bad do things have to get before your silence is considered complicity? If this isn't the America you want, do something about it.